Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this webinar organised by the Horticulture Group. I try to avoid using its long and cumbersome title, I have to confess. Before anything else, could I just do a few housekeeping notes? People are asked to be on mute, otherwise you get this extraordinary echoing system, unless they're actually speaking. We're going to take questions from the audience via written chat. And we are recording this for promotional purposes. I'm sure none of you are going to mind about that, hopefully not. There is one final point about me. I'm chairing this meeting, but I'm always terrified of things going wrong technologically. So I have asked someone from White House Consulting, our Secretariat, to step in if suddenly I vanish from the screen or cannot be heard. Now I come to a very welcome announcement. We had not expected this when we first started, but we have a minister with us, a minister at DEFRA, our parent department, in the shape of Victoria Prentis. We are absolutely delighted, Victoria, that you can be with us, at least for part of the meeting. So I'm going to give you the opportunity now to say a few words to set us off. Victoria.
Thank you, Janet, very much. And thanks to everybody in the APPG for continuing with this important work despite some quite significant challenges from the pandemic. I think the last year has shown us all how very important gardening, to use the common term, or the horticultural sector generally, is to people up and down the country. People have really relied on their time outside for physical and mental well-being. And we've seen and continue to see repeatedly when we look at the statistics that people are placing a greater emphasis on locally sourced food. Not necessarily that they've grown themselves, but they are more aware than they were before on where their food comes from. Having said all that, it's been a very difficult time for farmers and growers. We've had the pandemic to cope with and all of the restrictions and many months of not being able to sell and trade in the way that we would normally. And we've also had the challenges of coming to the end of EU transition and working through new rules on exports, which have been very difficult for some parts of the sector. But there are genuinely, I think, exciting times ahead. We're very ambitious in DEFRA. We want to see an innovative and a productive and a competitive sector worldwide. We think that there will be significant changes and a period of growth in the sector, and we very much want to support you in that. We've got good ways of working, I think, with the horticultural sector generally. We have regular engagement with the Ornamental Horticulture Roundtable Group, another rather long word to say, like the title of your APPG, but I do think it's important that we work through how the government and the sector can work together on issues of mutual interest, like sustainability and research, for example. For example, I know that there's collaboration proposed which covers training and how we share best practice in skills delivery. And I can see Martin Emmett on the call, who I know is working closely with the department on how the new Institute for Agriculture and Horticulture, TIA, develops in a way that is inclusive and includes the sector. I know that your APPG report from a couple of years ago talks about the perception of horticultural careers, and I think that's another area that we would like to work with you on to develop a new perception. I come from a farming background, and I would never describe myself as much of a gardener, like many farmers, though we are members of the RHS, and we definitely produce food in our garden, though our flower growing leaves much to be desired. But I do come from a family that originated in the Vale of Evesham, where we grew fruit and soft soft fruit and also hard fruit, and I still grow apples and pears at home in Oxfordshire. And I am so ambitious for this sector. This is where I think we have we will reap the rewards of the new agricultural policies, the new emphasis on research, the new emphasis on sustainability, and a new public awareness of how important locally sourced food is. So, of course, I'm very happy to talk about ornamentals. I'll try not to be too much of a farmer. My fellow minister, Rebecca Powell, is a proper gardener, I always like to say, and she's the one I often ask for tips, growing tips. But it may be we find I'm asking you as many questions as you're asking me. But whatever, I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you, Janet.
Right. Thank you very much, Victoria. And what you've said has been music to my ears, and I'm sure music to other people's ears as well. And we will forgive you your slight preoccupation with farming. But
I know, I am sorry. I'm always very embarrassed when I talk to real gardeners, because I mean, of course we care about ornamentals in our house. Yes. My husband chairs the Village Produce Association, which is a very, very great honour. He's only the 4th chair since the Second World War. So this is a long-term commitment, and our dahlia growing has had to improve as a result.
Yes. Oh, well done. So let me now just make a brief introduction to what we're going to discuss this morning. I know for a lot of people, horticulture simply means looking after your private garden. But of course, it is a major, major sector with a myriad of occupations within it, which I think isn't always realized. Not just garden maintenance, shall we call it, but landscaping, the care of parks and historic gardens, the work of plant breeders, the nurseries who produce the plants that we want to use, garden centres, all kinds of things. The arboricultural people. I always stumble over that word, but they're very important also. So the list actually goes on and on. And economically, it is major. We reckon that we employ directly 370,000 plus jobs. We contribute over 24 billion to the national GDP. And that is saying nothing at all about all the health benefits, which the minister was talking about, particularly in the COVID-19 period. So all in all, it's a major employer, major economic force. But we're also aware that the industry is facing critical skills shortage. The lack of people with those skills is actually, I think, holding back progress. We could do very much more than we are doing now. And we need, of course, to hang on to those that we have for the industry as it currently stands. So this, therefore, we come to the purpose of today's webinar, which is to look at the skills shortages and how we can overcome these. And we have been lucky enough to find 4 panelists with expertise in a variety of fields. I'm going to introduce them now, though I'm sure they'll be known to many of you already. I'm going to just give the name and then ask each one to say a little about themselves. So shall we start with Martin Emmett? Martin.
Sorry. Thank you, Janet. Good morning, everybody. I'm Martin Emmett. I have a dual role as a training consultant, and I'm also a director of a large group of garden plant nurseries on the South Coast. Alongside roles in the NFU and HTA, I'm here today as the chair of the Ornamental Horticulture Roundtable Group, Education and Employment Working Group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's turn now to Sue Moss. Sue?
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm the Head of Education and Learning at the Royal Horticultural Society. I've also sat on the Apprenticeship Development Groups and the T-level employer groups as well.
And we come now to Stewart Wardrop.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Stewart Wardrop. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Arboricultural Association. We're a UK and increasingly international charity, primarily involved with the amenity trees. We have members ranging from student to fellow, and we as an organisation and a business are looking to forward our members' aspirations and growth goals. So thank you.
Right, and the final member of the panel, Stephen Ensell.
Good morning. Yes, my name's Stephen Ensell. I've been in horticulture pretty much all my working life, and in my current role, I'm Education Officer with the British Association of Landscape Industries, where I head up the Go Landscape Careers Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to put 4 questions to our panelists before we ask members of the audience if they want to contribute a question. So the first one is, what barriers are there to the horticulture sector realizing its potential as a leading green sector? I wonder if we could ask you to kick this off, Sue.
Of course, thank you. Thank you, Baroness Fuchs. I think this is a really good question to start with, and I think you and the Minister have done a great job this morning in the introduction of illustrating just why the industry is so important, what it can bring to the economy, what it can bring to well-being and to the environment, and why we really need to invest in those skills that are going to make that happen. We've known in the industry for a long time that there are significant barriers to the sector realising its full potential, and skills are a significant part of those barriers. To find out more about those barriers, the Ornamental Horticulture Roundtable Group commissioned a piece of research from Tate Consultants in 2019. I know many of the people in the audience will be familiar with that research. And the research confirmed that there are significant shortfalls in numbers of people who are entering the sector, but also in the skills for higher level roles like supervisors and managers. So the barriers to those skills fall into 2 main categories, really. One is recruitment challenges and the other is training challenges. So on recruitment, one of the main issues is, as we've heard this morning, a lack of interest in the sector, the poor perception of horticulture. It's always had a significant perception problem, and we found that about 75% of young people consider it an unskilled career. People also think it's unpaid, low paid, sorry, and also quite uncool, which obviously we all know it is not. If young people are interested in the sector, there's also a lack of careers advice and support to help entrants find their niche in what is actually a really broad industry, which is filled with a wide range of opportunities. And I know my colleagues are going to cover industry initiatives later in the session. On the main barriers to training, due to perception issues, the horticultural training programs have seen falling numbers over recent years. It's led to a lessening of funding for horticultural departments at land-based colleges, and that has knock-on effects, obviously, with numbers of people being trained. We really hope that the post-16 skills reforms and the government's recent white paper will go some way to really helping with this issue. There is a risk, though, from the reforms that the industry will lose valuable qualifications, and that's something that we really would like to guard against. We absolutely support and welcome the apprenticeships and T-levels, and they are excellent programs to get people into the industry. But we must be careful, especially at those higher levels, that they do not replace established qualifications which are respected in the industry. They may be niche, they may be low in enrolments, but they are nevertheless vital for the industry. And lastly, referencing back to the skills gap at the supervisor and manager level, we do have a lack of training opportunities at level 3 and above. And I think my colleagues are going to discuss that later in the session as well. So in summary, those 2 main barriers relating to both difficulties in recruitment and difficulties in training. None are insurmountable, I think, which is great news. And I hope that we can work together on a solution.
Right, now who would like to come in next? Stewart, I see your hand going up.
Yeah, I think taking on Sue's point, and it's great news from the Minister that DEFRA are developing a change perception to our sector, music to our ears, because environmental awareness and green issues now have never been more to the front and centre in both the government and the public's mindset. The appreciation of our environment, green spaces, has never been more prominent than it is now. The one thing that we would say, though, in conversation with my colleagues in the various groups, is the thing that's really missing is that joined up thinking between government and our sector. We would like to see, and the Minister mentioned it, that joined up thinking is crucial, because there's so many opportunities to further embed that relationship and take opportunity of the potential within our sector. Huge opportunities and real potential to grow.
Right. Martin, do you want to come in? Okay. Stephen. Yeah. Okay. I think that was pretty comprehensively covered. So let's turn to the next question. What government policies or bodies have the potential to support the sector to grow, and what further incentives are needed? Shall we start with you, Stewart?
By all means, thank you, Janet. Arboriculture, we're one of the smaller contributors towards the all-party parliamentary group. Obviously, we've got much larger partners in the RHS and BALI and so on and so forth. But arboriculture on its own contributes £700 million to the economy. And yet, very few people actually understand our science and know of us. We believe we're the same size as the UK's fishing industry, and which one gets more promotion? So I'm speaking representing arboriculture, and our organisation has seen a rapid period of growth with this kind of move to kind of more green-facing activity. But it's really been constrained by the lack of a suitably skilled workforce. Sue mentioned it earlier. It was referenced in the PITE information from 2019. So obviously industry needs to help and lead on this, and what we would ask is the government bodies that can help are wide ranging, because horticulture covers so many different aspects. So things like Department of Health, making sure we embed the health benefits of access to green spaces is crucial. Department of Education, I know this will get raised continually, through this webinar today, but green careers have got to be promoted as lifelong, rewarding, well-paid careers, and also, crucially, maybe recognition as a STEM subject. Baroness Fuchs mentioned kind of aerospace and stuff. Wouldn't it be great in 5 years' time, or whenever, horticulture was given the same kind of billing as our aerospace industry? Department of Business, long-term planning and support. A lot of our industry sectors, arboriculture being one of them, plans on long business time cycles, the nurseries and so on and so forth. So long-term business support and the financial incentives accordingly. DEFRA, access to technology funding to bring high-skilled professions and training requirements. And the one good thing is government is consulting. There's an awful lot of consultation going on at the moment. The Environment Bill, the England Tree Strategy, which is very close to our hearts, the Planning White Paper consultation, the Environmental Land Management Scheme, and then the newly announced Office for Environmental Protection. Wouldn't it be great if horticulture was, in summarising my last couple of minutes, ornamental horticulture recognised as a STEM subject for all the benefits that brings, and then horticulture represented as best we can in the policy making bodies, for example, the Office for Environmental Protection. So I'm an advocate of promoting horticulture wherever we can, because our sector, the country, and everybody will benefit. Thank you.
Right. Anybody want to follow that? Any of the other? Yes, Martin.
Firstly, to absolutely emphasise the point about regarding horticulture as a STEM subject, but also Stewart said very much characterised an industry worth £700 million nationally, but locally not necessarily a particularly obvious component of the industrial sector. So with the skills white paper, we've got an emphasis on local skills development plans. And it's really important we've got a mechanism for industries like arboriculture and disciplines like arboriculture to be properly expressed, so that despite the fact that we have a local framework, the national industries can get the attention they need. Thank you.
Right. Anyone else want to come in at this point? Just wave a hand, one of the panelists. No, in that case, we'll go on to our third question. What industry initiatives are in progress to support engagement, recruitment, and progression in the sector? Stephen, would you like to start us off on this one?
Thank you, Janet. Yes, absolutely. So I think one of the exciting things that hopefully you've heard from what's being said is just how broad the industry is in terms of the range of jobs and roles that are available. So our initiatives are also there to raise an awareness, because that's a massive challenge for us, unfortunately. So few people misunderstand the industry, as you've already heard. So we're looking to challenge the misconceptions and also to encourage a diverse range of people to join our industry from that point of view. So the industry covers a lot of sectors, and we have a number of initiatives that will represent specific parts. So I head up the British Association of Landscape Industries, Go Landscape. We also have the Royal Horticultural Society's Careers in Horticulture. We have the Landscape Institute's Choose Landscape, and we've got the Chartered Institute of Horticulture's Grow Careers, initiatives that are trying to promote different and varied areas of the industry. So we've also got school engagement projects. So we're bringing some practical elements to schools, from primary schools up through to secondary schools. And there's various campaigns that are in there for school gardening and things like the RHS Green Planet. So thinking landscape specifically, because that's where my expertise is, Go Landscape is now in its third year. Its aims and objectives have been to directly respond to what our members have been asking, that they're struggling to recruit people into the roles they have in their companies, and they've also got skills gaps that they're looking to fill. So we directly address school leavers, concentrating on those particularly that are looking at their GCSE stage. And the reason we don't go any lower is purely just we haven't got the people to be able to fully carry that out. But then we also recognise there is an importance to tap into parents, to tap into teachers, and also to tap into careers advisors to make sure they have relevant information to understand what they can talk about, because these are the people that are often communicating with our youngsters getting ready to leave school. We also speak quite regularly to college students that have begun their journey in horticulture education and make sure we're supporting them. And also, which we'll speak about in a moment, career changes. So we do this in a number of different ways. We've got a website, we've got social media channels. We're attending nationwide schools, colleges and careers events with over 60 industry ambassadors that we use regularly in schools and colleges. And what's exciting is, particularly over the last sort of 9 months or so, is we've seen career changes really come to the forefront. In the current climate, it's meant that people are looking to change careers, and we've got an exciting opportunity for them. They're proving to be very popular in our industry. It's the most popular section on our Go Landscape website, the career changer section. The RHS, I know, have had a huge uptake in their qualifications, so people are looking to make that change. And we're also receiving a solid uptake from those that are leaving things like the military as well. And whilst these people have some wonderful life experience and transferable skills, it's not always enough. We're wanting to make sure that we're supporting them as well with education and training. So that's really what underpins everything that we do, is the promoting and supporting of a range of qualifications and training that we can do for not only people that are coming into the industry, so that we cater for all the levels. And what's great and quite unique in some ways about horticulture and its training is that we have opportunities from entry level right the way through to degree. So wherever people are coming in, there's an opportunity. And we also recognise that the importance of upskilling and making sure the people in the industry are moving forward as well. So we're making sure that there is progression opportunity and training opportunities for people that are already in the industry. As mentioned, we work closely with the Trailblazers group, and we're working with the Institute of Apprenticeships and Technical Education, where we've developed at the moment 2 apprenticeships at operative and supervisor level. I'm excited to see, hopefully, a manager apprenticeship coming out as well. And what this means is we've got a progression route. We've got the opportunity in apprenticeships for people to progress from an operative to a supervisor, right the way through to, hopefully, fingers crossed, a manager position if they so want it. And that is where we're seeing a problem. There's a bottleneck in our market where we've got a shortage of supervisors and operatives and managers that companies are struggling to recruit. So we're hoping that we're able to support in that regard. And we're also very delighted to be contributing and supporting the development of the T-levels for our industry as well. Thank you very much.
Right. Now, does anyone want to follow that from the panel? Yes, Martin.
Thank you, Janet. I'd just like to highlight the particular potential of the government's Kickstart programme, because Kickstart is an opportunity to get young people working on nurseries. And it's not just the funding, it's the mechanism. It's a very low risk mechanism to actually get young people onto nurseries. It might be useful to see something applied also to career changes as well. So the model is a really good model, and we'll be exploring how to exploit that to its maximum potential in our sector.
Thank you, Martin. Anybody else want to raise it?
Just before
Victoria, you would like to come in.
Just before I head off, Janet, I would like to thank the panelists for what they've said so far about new entrants to the profession, whether that's career changes or young people. We are working quite hard in DEFRA at the moment on a new young entrants strategy, which we will be reporting on later this year. And I would encourage your sector to engage fully with that, because of course one of the barriers to entry to farming is land, and it may well be that horticulture is a good way in for many young entrants who then may well want to stay in that side of the profession. I've also been watching your chat very closely, and I note that there's a question about seasonal agricultural workers and seasonal horticultural workers. That has been something that we've been working on very hard within DEFRA. This year, we have been able to make the case for 30,000 potential agricultural workers to come, but the seasonal ornamental workers have not been included for that. That's a case that we have heard and we will continue to talk about in government. But having said that, with very sadly a large number of newly unemployed people because of the pandemic, it is important that the sector continues to reach out to their local communities for pickers where they can find them. I know perfectly well, my first job was picking and selling plums at home. I know that these are not easy jobs and they're not unskilled jobs, and they are jobs that involve jolly hard work. But when I was growing up on 11 acres of plums, we sourced our workers certainly nationally, if not entirely locally. And we must look at ways as an industry to do more of that in the future, I think. Well, sadly, we have a much bigger unemployment problem than we had before the pandemic. Having said that, I do know of the needs of the sector, and I will continue to make the case in government. Lovely. I think everything else on the chat will come up later. I look forward very much to working very closely with this group as we go forward, particularly in the research space, because I think there are going to be immense gains in the next few years on new techniques in both agriculture and horticulture, which will interest all of us, and new ways of growing which are sustainable and which we can all get equally excited about, whether we're from the farming side or the horticultural side. So with that, I'll leave you to it, but thank you very much for having me.
And thank you again, Victoria, Minister, for being with us. And it just reminded me, my first paid job as a youngster was apple picking.
Exactly.
Right, so I think we better turn now.
Good for youngsters. They enjoy it, but it is hard work. Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye. Right, we better turn now, I think, to the fourth question before we turn to questions from the audience. And it is, what do you anticipate the training and recruitment landscape will look like in 2025? Martin, would you like to take this on?
Thank you, Janet. Yes, I think 2025 is an interesting time frame because it's a type of time frame in which current government policies will come to fruition. And it's also the sort of time frame that we would hope that the impact on society of the shift towards net zero carbon will start to sort of impact on sort of popular and thinking within society. So what I'm looking forward to, and what I know the whole of the Ornamental Horticulture Roundtable Group is looking forward to, is an increased visibility and appreciation of horticultural professions. And we'll be supporting this. We're doing everything we can to improve the professional identity of the sector as well. So the way we're going to do that, as we've already outlined in much of what's already been said, is we do want to have improved access to high quality careers material. And we note that in the white paper, there's provision for a new careers portal. We hope very much that we can work with government on the development of that to really put a good case for what careers in our industry are really about. I am sure that we are going to have a very vibrant offer in terms of apprenticeships and T-levels, which I'm sure are going to be well supported. We have extremely strong trailblazer groups supporting our apprenticeship programs, and it's a credit to all involved. We've got people on this call very much involved with that, and I'd like to pay tribute to the work they've done so far. But it will continue to develop, and I'm sure ultimately we will get a degree apprenticeships. Or degree apprenticeships, that's certainly a plural, sorted out for this sector too. Very importantly, we touched on it a bit earlier, we will be developing a professional competency framework, pardon me. This is very much in line with the strategy that's been taken by the Institute of Agriculture and Horticulture, and we do intend to work very closely in parallel with them. For the time being, TIA, as it's known, the Institute of Agriculture and Horticulture, can be focusing very much on the edible sector, but we hope to have entirely parallel developments coming out of our collective efforts in the Ornamental Horticulture Roundtable Group within the ornamental sector. So, to make sure this provision all takes off, it is really important. I'd like to stress again that point that we need to recognise this is a nationally important industry. It won't always feature very clearly on local skills development plans, but we need the provision to work on a national level. And as a sector, we will also aim to recognise and develop excellence in training. So working with college partners, making sure that the offers that are available, both as full-time education and in terms of competency development, are really high quality efforts that be very attractive to those within and without the industry at the moment. So we're confidently predicting that we will have growth in our sector and that we will be creating a lot of new jobs, and we need to prepare the ground now for new jobs at the heart of our green economy.
Anybody else want to speculate on 2025? Yes, Stephen.
Thank you. Yes, just to reiterate what Martin was saying about the prospect of jobs for the future. In a recent State of Trade survey for our membership, nobody particularly was going to be making redundancies. Everybody was looking potentially for a growth around about recruiting 25% more as a minimum into their companies. So the jobs are available. They're there and waiting. It's unfortunate that some industries have struggled through the pandemic. Landscaping and horticulture as a whole, for the most part, hasn't, and that's good assurance for people coming in and joining the industry that there's job prospects at the end of their training or whatever they go through to progress into the industry.
Anybody else want to have a go? Stewart.
Just to reiterate what Stephen said, our sector has continued to grow and boom over recent periods, even with COVID. For example, our approved contractor scheme has grown by over 17% in the last 3 years. And talking to our members, that growth is being constrained by the lack of suitably trained and experienced people. So by 2025, with the right resources and facilities in place, the scheme, the industry must continue to grow. It would be a real lost opportunity again. Thank you.
Right. Any last thoughts before we turn to questions from the audience? No. Right. Well, in that case, I have a number of questions already, some even before we started and some during the course. I will try and get through as many as I can in the time which we have available. So let's make a start. This comes from Laura Corriton. What is the current and future role of the horticultural colleges in developing the horticulture workforce of the future? Who would like to start on this? Sue, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would say that horticultural colleges are absolutely vital. I think they've been the cornerstone of our horticultural training for many years, and they will continue to be so. I think we do have to really address the issue that the provision in horticultural, in many horticultural departments has kind of decreased in line with investment happening elsewhere in colleges, and we really need to address that balance. I think we do need to look with the white paper. There's quite a lot of focus on sort of localized training, but I think the horticultural industry is so national and so diverse that we really need to look at that provision across the country and making sure that there is a provision at horticultural colleges all the way across the UK, and that it's a consistent picture as well. I noticed we've got a question in the chat from Jeremy Kurzweil of Plumpton College, who are doing an excellent job at really lifting their horticulture sector, their horticulture department, and they're doing that by making it really relevant to how people live today. They're really linking horticulture through their new site in Brighton, where they're linking it to food, they're linking it to well-being, and they're really making those horticultural skills look relevant to society. So I think there's a job for colleges, but there's also a job for us, and there's a job for policymakers in really looking at the issues in the land-based sector, because I think land-based is often quite unique and doesn't always respond in the same way that other industries do. So we do need to look at how broad the industry is and what specific needs it does have, I think.
Right, anybody else want to come in on this? If not, we'll move to the next question, which comes from Sagar Dattani. I do hope I pronounced that correctly. What is industry doing to engage with local authorities to ensure they all include horticulture skills in local skills improvement plans? Who wants to take this one on? Nobody by the look of it. Martin.
Sorry, thanks, Janet. Well, this is the tricky one. We do need to be in as many local skills development plans as possible, and really, because it's local, that means you actually have to address it on a local level. So it is down to businesses locally, but obviously they'll receive support from the trade bodies as well. But taking again that example of arboriculture, that industry that's worth so much nationally, but such a marginal proportion of local economies. The key thing is that we do need to have somewhere some excellence that the rest of the country can utilise. So there will need to be some degree of focus with certain colleges offering the best provision, really being supported as well as we can from the industry side.
Right. Anybody else want to come in on that one? If not, we'll move to the next question, which is in fact slightly related. This comes from Rachel Chambers. Will thought be given to how to ensure sectors like horticulture that may not be particularly concentrated in one area are still captured in skills improvement plans? Martin, any thoughts on that one?
Like you're saying, hello, Rachel. It's very much the same theme. I think what we do need to do, though, is help and equip some colleges to become excellent. So it needs to be a partnership exercise. I know the Chartered Institute of Horticulture are about to commence a survey of training provision. We need to do some follow-up work as the Ornamental Roundtable to the PI-TAPE report. We need to actually explore, where the best provision is, and then we need to see how we can support it, and then be able to have some platform to roll it out on a national basis.
Right. Anybody want to come in on this? If not, we'll carry on to the next question, which comes from Sally Ann Hart. Many people, including the young, think of horticulture as being a rural pastime or issue. How can we highlight the importance of and cool careers in urban horticulture and urban gardens? Sue, would you like to come in first?
Sure. Sorry, Stephen. Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, and I think that's absolutely right. It's traditionally, I think that is one of our main problems in horticulture, that traditional perception that we have that we all work in a grand country house and it's not relevant to you if you don't do that. But I think COVID and the past year has given us such an opportunity in the industry that we really need to grab with both hands, that actually people have seen that their green space close to them, whether that is their garden outside their back door, whether that's their windowsill, or whether that's a park or green space near to them, is just so vital for their well-being and for the environment as well. I think as an industry, we must take that opportunity now. It sort of all links into this this wider question that I think Martin illustrated really well about how we can increase that sort of visibility and that professional identity of the industry and really start to weave those messages in very strongly. And I think that's a job for all of us. It's a job for all of us in the industry, and it's a job for government that actually really we need to turn on its head that middle-aged, grey-haired man who is a gardener on the careers website, and really get some young people in there in different horticultural situations, because actually green space is almost more important within an urban setting, and we really need to highlight that, I think.
Anyone else want to contribute on this one? Yes, Stephen.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Sue was saying there, is actually it's getting people to think a little bit outside the box of what they view as a green space or a garden. So traditionally, where maybe green spaces don't always fit in an urban setting, we've got things like green roofs, we've got things like green walls, and it's just highlighting the value that those spaces bring, and like Sue said, the massive impact that how they will change and impact climate change, and the good that they do, lowering temperatures, increasing oxygen, taking all the nasty things out of the air that we're breathing in cities. It's really interesting when we highlight that to school children, things like that, and say, anywhere green spaces, this is the value it has and what it does. It's, they get a real buzz out of it. Absolutely.
Anybody else want to come in on this? Yes, Stewart.
I'd just like to follow on from Stephen and Sue. I think, however, it does fall back to an element of, yes, industry can do so much to kind of promote the opportunity. However, overarching this, I think there really should be, and the point I think was made earlier by various of the panelists, really government, the opportunity to embed horticulture within the kind of the policy making and the decision process and so on and so forth will get the wheels of government doing a little bit more for us than it does at the moment. Just a little change will make a significant difference for us. Yeah. Thank you.
Now, the next question comes from Baroness Buscombe. Is there a link between some of the panelists and the MOD Career Transition Partnership, given around 13,000 people leave the armed forces each year? Now, yes, Stephen.
Yes, so Go Landscape does work with a number of charities connected with the military, because we see these as a fantastic fit for our industry with the transferable skills that they have. So 100%. So we attend a great deal of career shows, and we work with the charities to raise the profile and put it on their radar, and then make links with the skills and the things that they've already done. The fact that they're great team players, the fact that they're quite happy to work outside, makes them a really good fit from that point of view. So we're always looking to kind of tap into any other charities or areas of the industry that are looking to promote that with all those people, those men and women that are leaving the military. 100%, yes.
Right. Stewart, you'd like to come in?
Just really to reiterate what Stephen said, the Arboricultural Association employs a large number of ex-military veterans and so on, precisely because they've gone through that process. They understand, they've gone through and learned those skills about managing processes and so on, which are invaluable in our industry. So yeah, I'd just like to reiterate Stephen's point. The Arboricultural Association, the arboricultural industry employs a large number. We see that as a significant opportunity to attract people with the suitable basic skills, to enable us to grow. So we support wholeheartedly the liaison with veteran groups and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Well, I have a great interest in veteran groups, and this is a connection I'd never made before. So thank you for that. Let me turn now to a question from Malcolm Goodwin. What role do the panelists see for the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy alongside DEFRA to recognise the wider aspects of horticulture and raise its credibility? Now, who'd like to take that one on? Martin.
Well, this sort of underlines the whole sort of operating principle of the Ornamental Horticulture Roundtable Group. So we work with DEFRA to talk to other government departments. BASE is certainly one of them. Obviously, DFE is another. So we are always evolving our sort of position, and as we are recognising every new opportunity, we go to the relevant department with our colleagues in DEFRA. So BASE are subject to a number of avenues of discussion at the moment.
Anybody else want to come in? Yes, Stephen.
Just to reiterate as well what Stewart brought up, the importance of us being connected with STEM. So it seems there's a logical link for a lot of those areas that go straight into STEM, but horticulture has kind of almost been like sitting on the outside of it. There are aspects that people think applies to it, but actually as a STEM subject, we tick an awful lot of boxes, and particularly with this green skills and green jobs that's coming up, horticultural and people with horticulture experience and knowledge and education are going to make a massive difference in this sector going forwards.
Right. Stewart.
There are various consultations going on at the moment about the farming transition funds and so on and so forth, and we just need to make sure that horticulture doesn't again get missed out when grant aid and funding opportunities come along. There's a series of consultations taking place over the next kind of coming weeks and months. We just need to make sure that horticulture gets a fair representation with regards to those funds. It's being undertaken by the Department of Business and also DEFRA, I understand. So we just need to make sure horticulture will be represented. Make no bones about it. Arboriculture has already submitted a consultation response and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Right. Anybody else want to come in on this? If not, we'll go to the next question, which comes from Michael Myers. Is the fragmentation of the industry not part of the problem in raising the profile of horticulture? Sue, would you like to come in on this one?
Yeah, I think there are ways of looking at that, aren't there? It's the fragmentation of the industry, or it's being a victim of our own success, that actually the industry is so broad that you can fit it into so many different categories. So I think when we're looking at STEM, absolutely horticulture is a STEM subject, but sometimes it isn't, because sometimes it's an art subject, and we just need to make sure that we are fitting the industry into those appropriate boxes as and when those opportunities arise. I think also initiatives such as the Institute for Agriculture and Horticulture have to help that. So I think there has been, a tradition sometimes of lots of things sort of trying to happen across the industry in different places without kind of a sort of coordinated approach. And hopefully this new industry and whatever institute and something that could come out of that alongside for ornamental and environmental horticulture, if that could also be funded, I think that would really help that cause.
Martin, did you want to come in, bearing in mind your particular role?
Well, again, I think it's underlining the role of the Ornamental Horticulture Roundtable Group. It is where we've got the NFU, we've got the Horticultural Trades Association, we've got BALI, we've got the Arboricultural Association, Chartered Institute of Horticulture. We are all working collectively, and so yes, there is a risk with such a diverse industry that it can be fragmented, but we're very much in an age now where we are all working together.
Good. So let's turn to another question. This one is from Louisa Mansfield. How do we create stronger links between potential employers and students across various training colleges? Now, what about this one? Yes, Stephen.
I think what's quite encouraging, and it still very much plays a part of full-time education, particularly for colleges, is that there is a work placement that usually goes with it. So there are links straight away. I know part of my role is I always aim to support as many colleges as I can to make introductions to, say, BALI members. I'm sure Stewart does the same as well. In terms of the people finishing their courses, we make introductions or offer to make introductions to industry for them to come and to make sure that there are opportunities for them to move into at the conclusion of their courses. So, it's there. It could be better. I agree with that, but there is a lot in place to try and encourage that, to make sure it happens.
Anyone else want to come in on this? Yes, Sue.
Thank you. Yeah, I just agree with Stephen on that. I think that's a very good point. And also, I think apprenticeships in T levels are going to force our hands to do that more and more as we move into the next few years. Apprenticeships are already doing it, and they have been for years with apprentices and employers and colleges working together. But I think the new apprenticeships are enabling that more. Also, T levels, I think, are really going to change that even more. When the horticulture T level will be coming in from 2023, and there's a work placement requirement in that, where T level candidates will have a 3-month requirement for a 3-month work placement as well, which is going to require a different relationship between employers and the colleges. So I think it will start to happen in an organic way over the next couple of years.
Anyone else want to come in? If not, we'll go to the next question from Lord Young. What efforts are being made to ensure that all local authorities and LEP's local employment partnerships, together with colleges and universities, have a plan to encourage apprenticeships in the agriculture and horticulture sector? Now, who wants to take on apprenticeships? Martin.
I suppose it links very much to some of the previous questions. I think the key thing is have a good apprenticeship program. And you know, if you look, I actually am on the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education's route panel, and this sector, the ornamental sector, is performing very well in apprenticeships at the moment. We've got strong programs, and if the strong programs are there, they're going to get supported. So it's investment in the quality of those programs to make them as attractive as possible, I think, is the key to this.
Right. Anybody else want to come in on that one? If not, can we come to Wayne Powell's question? Could the panel comment on the role of horticulture and mental health and the National Food Strategy? That encompasses quite a lot. Who would like to take this one on? Stephen, I'm going to pounce on you.
I don't know if Sue wants to have a go at this one. I'm more than happy to pass this one over to Sue. I know that's okay. It's her heart.
Right, let's pass the buck to Sue.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I think from a national food strategy point of view, I think obviously we are concentrating here on ornamental and environmental horticulture. So I think that's not an area that we would stray into too much. I think the Institute for Agriculture and Horticulture will be focusing on that much more closely. But I think actually a lot of the principles that are contained in the national food strategy are really kind of transferable across. So all of the thoughts about people's well-being, but also about environment and climate change, and all of those things which are actually generic really to horticulture and all of the things that we're trying to do. Obviously, the role of horticulture and mental health is becoming much more clear. I think we've always had quite a strong basis in horticulture as horticulture for therapy, and getting people back into employment and getting people just stronger if they've been having mental health issues. However, I think actually we've all realised, as we were talking about before during COVID, about how important it is for everyone just to boost their mental health. And I really think that we need to start to think about that more and to utilise that more. I think people have really understood more that the link between green space, as we were saying, and how they feel. So I think as long as we're using the up-to-date research and that we keep researching and we keep implementing that learning, gardens can really become quite key to that.
Right, so let's turn to the next question. This is from Arit Anderson. Alongside raising the profile of our sector, how do we differentiate our professionals so that they can be valued for their skills and be paid accordingly? Martin.
Well, this is where the sort of concept of the competency, I hate that word, I'm sorry, competency framework comes in, and you know, which is being very much sort of driven by the Institute of Agriculture and Horticulture at the moment. So it is actually creating that clear sort of differentiation of areas that are real professional skills. I think we mustn't ignore the fact that actually there are already some very well-paid jobs in this sector. We're too easily associated with this idea of sort of just seasonal work or quite basic tasks, and of course some basic skills are required in the sector, but there are a lot of highly trained professionals, and some of them are actually being better paid than most people would realize.
Does anyone else want to come in on this? Yes, Stewart.
I would say that's maybe a challenge and an opportunity for our sector as well. With the right opportunity is actually informing people of the rewards that are available. I think Martin touched on it a moment ago. There are some really rewarding, well-paid careers. I know within arboriculture, there are significant rewards to be earned. Once you obtain new skills and new values, those, the financial rewards and the other rewards that come along are there. The opportunities are there. What we need to do as a sector is maybe promote those opportunities outside of our sector. Maybe we'll get some more people coming in and helping us reduce the skills and labour shortages that we currently face. Thank you.
Anybody else want to come in on this? Yes, Sue.
Thank you. Just quickly, I think we're again looking at that breadth of roles across the sector, aren't we, and how we differentiate those and how we talk about those. I think we're absolutely right that we need to increase the visibility of those roles and raise the profile of them. I think there's two things really. At a sort of level 2 sort of level, which is about GCSE level, I think lots of horticultural professionals are paid kind of in line with other craft skill professionals for other people who are paid who are working at sort of a level 2 level. But then I think we do have to think about that progression, and if we're looking at that supervisor and manager level and how the industry have told us through the PI-TATE survey that actually there isn't the training capacity in order to get people to those levels. They want people to go into those levels, they want people to go to high level jobs, but there isn't the training capacity. So I think that once we start to we can start to plug those training gaps, perhaps we can make those. I think that the industry is kind of is shaping itself perhaps in a certain way towards the skills that are available, but if we make those skills more visible and we make them more available, perhaps I hope we can really start to highlight the professionalism of those roles.
Right, anybody want to make any other comments on this one? I think we have time for one question at least. This comes from Lord Carrington. Can we have an update on the proposed professional body for agriculture and horticulture, which I believe has been endorsed by DEFRA in relation to the Agriculture Act? Now, who knows about this one? Martin.
This indeed is the Institute of Agriculture and Horticulture, I believe. I know there are colleagues from AHDB and NFU on this call that could actually provide that information, give a more up-to-date picture on that body itself, because at the moment we're working in parallel with it rather than fully incorporated into it. But I believe that's what this question is referring to.
Anyone have any other thoughts on this one?
We could let someone from the NFU speak.
Is there anybody from the NFU to speak? I wonder. Well,
sorry, Janet. Rachel.
I am. I'm just unmuting. Apologies. Yeah. Just waiting for the IT to do its thing. In terms of the question, the Institute of Agriculture and Horticulture is the name that has sort of been chosen as such. But essentially, the vision is about creating a professional body for agriculture and horticulture in England. In terms of horticulture, Martin sort of summarised that at this point in time, the plan is to kind of work very closely and develop sort of professional frameworks or competencies, which I know was tripping Martin up in kind of parallel, because there are crossover areas, but also respecting that there are differences too. But that professional framework will end up being kind of, I suppose, the backbone, because it will allow people to see in relation to any given role within agricultural horticulture, what skills are needed for it. They can then map out what they've already got, where they could develop, and that will help people who are coming in as new entrants, people who perhaps haven't worked in the industry before. But it also means that people who are already working in the industry can look at areas that they can develop and progress in. And it will also help people identify training that relates specifically to those skill areas. So it should hopefully be something which is very user-friendly for individuals to use, and also potentially support businesses in sort of helping their workers maximise their potential. So there's a lot of work going on to set that up, but it was something that came up in the agricultural transition plan. So now that backing is there, there's going to be a lot of sort of groundwork to do to get everything up and running. But we're very much, NFU has been a party to the project for some time now, so it's something that we're very committed to doing, and we want to deliver something that really helps and really works for the industry and boosts its appeal externally, and also boosts prestige and sort of reputation that agriculture and horticulture have. And obviously part of that relates to horticulture as well, and hopefully in time ornamentals, in terms of that parallel thinking that Martin's mentioned.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful. Perhaps I could say that I hope that horticulture will play a full part in any new organisations. I remember saying a couple of years ago, rather bitterly, that I felt that horticulture, ornamental or otherwise, was rather the Cinderella of the scene, and I hope that that is now laid to rest forever. We may not have found the glass slipper, but I think we're getting on very much better. So I fear we've now come to the end of the time allotted for this meeting. My apologies to those who were put down questions and have not been answered. We tried to get through as many as possible, but it remains now for me to offer a very warm thanks to our panelists for submitting to answering all these questions. They all lead very busy, important lives, so we are very grateful to them for coming together this morning to answer a lot of questions. I think it raises even more questions as we go forward, but that is all to the good. Could I also thank all those who have submitted questions and our audience. Very grateful to you all for taking such an interest. And could I say to any parliamentarian who would like to join our group after this taster, we would be most happy to welcome them. And finally, could I thank those responsible for what I call the technical backup needed to run this meeting. I have to say, as someone who is a babe in arms of all these things, I am particularly grateful to them, as I'm sure all our panelists are too. So with that, again, my grateful thanks for everyone contributing or taking part in any way. And I hope this might be the first of many such webinars. But thank you, everyone, and goodbye.